welcome to the channel. My name is Zach. Please like and subscribe to this video and be sure to hit that notification bell to not miss any of my future videos. And let's see if this video can get 15 likes.
Hi there, my name is Zach.
Hello Zach. Hello Zach.
Hello Zecca. Hello Zeki.
Oh my goodness, look at my Bitcoin chart. Not to mention the ZCash chart. It's time to get into this video.
To the channel, my name's Zach. Please like and subscribe, turn on notifications, and let's get straight into the action. So we're going to try and be quick again today. I think quicker videos are clearly better. Most people don't have lots of time, and I probably shouldn't have wasted your time even saying that. So looking at we're on the ZCash 1 hour here. We had a little bit of volatility, not volatility, but last night we did come back down on ZCash to test the lower end of the range that we've been in since we came off our lows earlier in the week. The same with Bitcoin. This is on the daily. If we look on the 1 hour, we can see that we have had a little bit of the fizz has come off of the bounce. However, I think this is all in line with what we should expect. I think what we should note is what I've been saying all along, which is that we are in a wyckoff accumulation on the daily. If we believe that we're in this wyckoff accumulation zone at perhaps phase C by now, we've had the spring, we should expect, I think, to test this downward trending resistance, which has been past support, and that's coming in at around 35,000. There we have it, 34,934, I think, or something like that is where we would run into it. And you can see we are actually making our way slowly up in that direction. We've tested this last night. We tested the 32,000 levels again, and I think really we're for the moment we're going to see that we're probably trading in a range. Look, we can see that the Bollinger Bands are narrowing, and John Bollinger noted that, generally speaking, periods of high volatility, i.e. where the bands widen, are often followed, more often than not, followed by periods of low volatility, and vice versa. And so you can expect to see after, well, let's say it this way around, if you see a narrowing of the Bollinger Bands, you can infer that we're in a trading in a range during a period of relatively low volatility, and you could expect a period of relatively high volatility to follow, either with price declines or price increases leading to that volatility. Now we can see this taking place on the bigger time frame, on the daily time frame. Look at the broadening of we trade in a range, the bands narrow, and look how they widen as the volatility. It's obvious really, but you can see again we trade in a range in this accumulation zone, and you can see they broaden here. This is on the daily, and this could of course point towards further volatility to the downside. On balance, the reason I believe it will be we're actually seeing the spring, and this is a harbinger of volatility to the upside, just as this was a harbinger of volatility to the downside. I think the broadening that we're seeing on the daily suggests that we're only at the beginning of the volatility. I think the broadening on the daily will increase as over the days and weeks we now push to the upside with increasing ferocity. And I think that if we look at, for example, the dollar index, then we can see another example of this phenomenon taking place. Now look at here we are on the 2 hour. Look at this is the 15th of June. Look at the narrowing of the Bollinger Bands here. The price trades in a very narrow range, which is a complete harbinger of things to come. The volatility then explodes, and look at as the price explodes to the upside. And here we are trading in a range, but at the top. The volatility is fairly great still, but look, we are seeing the volatility reduce, and here we are seeing very much a narrowing of the Bollinger Bands. Now, what do we firstly, we are trending down, and so the trend is your friend until the end of the trend. So we are now trending down on the 2 hour. So if we see the volatility reducing and we are narrowing of the bands, we could infer from that firstly, for the moment, for the foreseeable future, we are going to have a period of low volatility, and that effectively means trading in a range, just as it did here. And look, this is from the 15th of June until the 16th of June. So we've got a day or so. So let's say here we are now entering a narrowed range, which maybe for a day or so trades within a range at the levels or the dollar levels that we're currently at. Well, I think this is what market participants probably feel. I think that's likely why Bitcoin, if we look on the 2 hour chart, Bitcoin itself seems to be trading into a range, but in contrast, Bitcoin has begun to trend higher. We could argue it is the other side of this currency pairing. Really, it's Bitcoin against the dollar, and as we can see, the dollar has begun to trend down. Bitcoin has begun to trend back up. I believe that we will have a test of the lower end of the range again, and I think it's likely to take a couple of days for us to get there, a day or so. So perhaps we trade in a range, broadly speaking, in a range, but to the upside, whilst the dollar herself trades broadly in a range, but broadly in a range, and yet slightly to the downside as we have seen. And as I mentioned before, it does to me look like we've broken the neckline on this head and shoulders, and the dollar index seems to be trending down. Maybe it gets down to 91, maybe it doesn't, but yeah, I believe that is kind of what's happening. And I think for ZCash, we can see the same thing on the 1 hour and on the 2 hour. We have a narrowing of the you can see very, very, very much so a narrowing of the bands, and this implies a period of low volatility. You could trade this range. I would recommend, and what I will be doing is trading the range with. Certainly don't trade with your whole position, but because I think you probably want to be long with a large portion of your of whatever funds you have available to put into ZCash or to put into Bitcoin or whatever it is that you believe is a better store of value than the dollar. You probably want to just be holding on to the bigger portion of that, and letting it accumulate. But you could trade a small portion of your holdings if there is this period of low volatility, relatively low volatility. Then you could trade between these bands fairly successfully without too much difficulty and without too much risk. And yet on Zcash, as I've mentioned before, I just have a feeling that it may hold. Looking at if you look at the Zcash to Bitcoin chart, let's look on the 4 hour. So I think we can very much see how strong how strongly this is trending. And as I've said before, I think the market participants are slightly more astute, perhaps slightly bigger holders of both Bitcoin and Zcash than the market participants in the Bitcoin USD market, or Bitcoin USDT, whatever you're trading. And this to me looks like we have the beginnings of a strong uptrend. I think that when Zcash trends sideways but towards this maybe $120 level, I have a feeling that for one thing, I wouldn't even be surprised to see Zcash just outperform Bitcoin altogether at this point. It has been outperforming Bitcoin since this point, since the lows, which is to be expected. But I'm not entirely confident that while I believe Bitcoin is destined to retest its absolute lows of 28,000, but I think it will retest 30,000 or 31,000. I'm not sure that Zcash will do the same. We might get another trip down to 105. We may go down to 100. It would be nice. It would be nice to accumulate more at those levels. But don't be surprised if you see Zcash pause and wait for breath in the high teens or mid-teens, or even of the hundreds, whilst Bitcoin takes its test of the lower end of the accumulation range. That is what still seems to be on the agenda as far as I can see, and yeah, I think really that's all there is to say about it. We'll wait and see pre-market for. I mean, look, yeah. So pre-market for SPY, it's going up. I mean, it took a little tumble before they closed, but you have to think this was it looks like this was just a retracement to the moving average, or to the moving averages that are going to support further upside. And again, why wouldn't it? If we're seeing weakness in the short-term weakness, or at least a pullback from the dollar's highs, then we should of course see this filtering through into strength in equities, and strength for Bitcoin, strength for anything that is inversely correlated to the dollar. And I think, broadly speaking, we shouldn't be surprised that the market has soaked up what the Fed had to say recently. Yes, there have been acknowledgements that we are on an unsustainable path, that we are effectively spending beyond our means on a global scale. Certainly, let's say the American government is, and I mean, which government isn't? So yes, we can expect markets to react, but with a flight to safety, and in expectation that rates perhaps interest rates will be going up sooner than expected. But whilst there was an acknowledgement that this is an unsustainable path, the overall takeaway from what the Fed most recently said was that they will be maintaining the path that they're on in order to support the economy until the economy is able to support itself, or until the economy is effectively in boom times. I think there was a reference of something like some incredibly large GDP growth figure of something like 6%. Well, I can't see that happening anytime soon. So I don't think we need to really worry about. And I think the markets are probably gradually coming around to this way of thinking. It's like a quick wake up call. So let's pile into the dollar. A little bit of risk aversion comes into focus. But on balance, once people realise that actually nothing has changed, then you will see this kind of thing, as the dollar gains are are pared back or given back, and where does all of that money go that's leaving this asset? Well, it goes into this one here, and it goes into this one here, and it goes into this one here, and so on. And so we see, I mean, for crying out loud, this is just well, yeah, look, that's all there is to say. So I think we can expect 35,000 or thereabouts for Bitcoin over the medium term, short to medium term, and probably a rejection initially, in order that it is unable to test these prices again. Don't forget, the composite man wants to check what floating supply is left, because he doesn't want to leave it in your hands. He wants to take it away from you at $31,500 for Bitcoin, and so he will manipulate the market if he can, to drive the price lower. And when he realizes that the supply is almost, the floating supply is almost all used up, he will buy it up, and the price will recover. And yeah, so this is what I expect to happen. And I think I was looking at the ZCash chart. Well, it's the same. ZCash is kind of, if you want to trade Bitcoin without using leverage, then trade ZCash. It's kind of, you own the assets. You don't need to you can't lose your assets. You can't be liquidated. If you want to trade Bitcoin without leverage, but with higher returns than you will get from trading Bitcoin on its own, then I recommend you buy some ZCash and trade that asset, because it's effectively in terms of the returns, they are leveraged without using leverage. The returns are greater, the highs are higher, the lows are lower, and ultimately it's a scarce asset. It should also have the same. I'd like someone to maybe provide us, if anyone has, a stock to flow model for ZCash. This Plan B stock to flow model for Bitcoin is fantastic. It's bang on the money so far. I buy into the theory. I think it all just makes sense. When economists and government economists talk about the dollar and talk about how the global economy works, talk about inflation, it's all just too complicated. Nobody really understands. The reason you don't understand is by design, is because it doesn't actually make sense. Because what's actually happening is a sleight of hand. Bitcoin, it's the opposite. It's completely obvious. It's the right thing. It's how you would like money to be, and ZCash is the same. ZCash, however, is faster. ZCash is more scalable. ZCash is cheaper to transact. ZCash is more fungible than Bitcoin. ZCash is better for the environment than Bitcoin. ZCash, however, is just as scarce. It has the same inbuilt coded robustness, and essentially it's a finer monetary unit. I believe that ZCash will be used by all. I think maybe the central banks, maybe the big financial institutions, and very wealthy individuals will continue to own the Bitcoin, just like they own the gold, just like they own the current underlying assets that underpin our financial system. But I think normal people, we will be using ZCash in the years to come, and I think so we should. So accumulate it now, because at the moment it's early in its life cycle. It would be like buying Bitcoin in 2013 if you bought ZCash today, and so I can highly recommend doing so. Okay, so I think that's pretty much all we have time for. So yeah, you want to see for Bitcoin, you could take some profits around this level, 35,000. It might also, let's have a little look. let's see what kind of level we would. Oh wait, sorry. So you could also. Should we do it from there? Well, so if we take this as the overall decline that we've just suffered, yeah, look, we could be looking at somewhere in between. Yeah, I mean, maybe it gets to 36,500. I think this kind of level is where to take some profit on the basis that we will have retraced, broadly speaking, up to about the 0.618 fib, somewhere around here. And that also ties in with this trend, this resistance, line of resistance, and it will be providing some resistance, I believe. And there's every chance that you then might get an opportunity to reaccumulate at the 32,000 levels on Bitcoin. ZCash, the same kind of thing. Let's have a little look on we can use the 2 hour as well. So if we go from here, oops. So you could look to take some profit at the 0.618. You may be again. It sometimes goes to where Bitcoin might pop to the 618. You often find Zcash going to the next fib up. But look, let's consider this trend, this trend line, which will potentially act as resistance. So I think, look, it's tying in perfectly here with our 0.618. So 123. This could be a point to take some profit. Except that with Zcash, I'm not so convinced that we will necessarily test down to 100 again. We did test it here. In fact, we tested it here. We tested it here. We might get another trip down. So make a judgment call at the time. But I on balance wouldn't be surprised to see Zcash hold a little bit more steady here and wait to take its cue from Bitcoin. And if Bitcoin does bounce at does retest its lower levels, then I think Zcash will be powering ahead. And so certainly don't sell everything at this point if you're in Zcash, just in case we get a little alt season-y Zcash pump ahead of the Bitcoin recovery of its own. That's what I'll be doing, and I'll be looking to see what's happening in traditional markets, and I'll be looking to see what's happening with the dollar index to confirm my decisions one way or the other, and listen to what those central bankers say. Anyhow, happy hunting, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Oh, and please do like and subscribe. Please do turn on the notification bell, and then you won't miss any of this future content. Thanks very much. Bye.